I would like to see one about like a girl who isn't like any of the other girls, instead of it being like, oh, high school and she has a crush on this boy. I just wanted something different for once.
Welcome to the annual Commercial Commissioners session. It's a great chance to find out what the major pay channels are doing, what's working for them, what they're commissioning, how they're commissioning, I guess, as well, and how they're acquiring as such, like what the hits are on their channel, and we're going to get to see some stuff as well. We've got the three major UK pay TV channel groups. In fact, not just the UK, globally, each of these, Disney, Turner and Nick are big international groups, but we're going to be focusing on the UK and EMEA side of their operations. So let me do the introductions. So from Disney, we have, to my immediate left, we have David Levine. Now, David is VP of Programming, Production and Strategic Developments, Disney Channels EMEA, and General Manager, Disney Channels UK and Ireland. Next to David, we have Louise Benham, who is Director of Programming, Disney Channels UK and Ireland. Now, I think, guys, to frame the conversation, you've got something to show us, and we're then going to talk about the show. And I believe we've got something of an exclusive.
Yes, we do. So, hi, everyone. Good morning. I think you had asked us before to briefly also tell folks what we do. So I have two roles. One role is to oversee programming production for the Disney kids channels across Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And then my other role is to be the general manager of the three kids channels here in the UK and Ireland. And Louise?
And I work closely with David on the UK side of things for programming our three channels here in the UK. So Disney Junior, Disney Channel, and Disney XD, and we'll be talking lots more about those coming up.
So the first thing we want to share with you is an exclusive. No one has ever seen this before. Please put down your phones. Do not record it. And it's a music video. It's a piece of a music video from a new show coming out in the autumn called The Lodge. The Lodge is a reimagining of Disney Channel Israel live-action series called North Star. It's the show The Lodge is produced by the Foundation, which is part of Zodiac, and it's one of the ways in which we work with UK production companies. We asked a number of production companies to come pitch to help us create this new version of the show, and the Foundation got the commission. So what this is a music video. It's what we call a concept music video of a song called Believe That, featuring the talent from The Lodge. And The Lodge it's a live action show, 10-part series, features a girl named Sky who with her father set about to reinvigorate the lodge that is in their family over the summer. And there's a bunch of young kids that work at the lodge and also hang out at the lodge that she becomes friends with and also becomes romantically involved with. So this is a taste of the lodge. The lead singer is a great actress, great singer named Jade Allen, also has been on some CBBC shows. And take a look.
Keep me shining through the rain. I got a fight to look the future in the face. I'm full of faith to keep me pushing on the way. Got it all right here in me. Believe that. Ooh, yeah. Believe that. Come on. 1, 2, 3. Can't stop, won't stop. Gotta kick it up and go hard. Just walk this walk. Give it all that we got. I said can't stop, won't stop. Gotta kick it up and go hard. Just walk this walk.
So guys, that's The Lodge, which is a format of an Israeli show or a reimagining. Is this, looking at that, is this Disney UK and EMEA's High School Musical moment? Is it Camp Rock for a different part of the world?
Well, we can only hope. High School Musical really helped define Disney Channel, and actually to make some of us feel very old, it'll be High School Musical's 10th anniversary in the UK this autumn. So we can only hope to hit that level of success. We've certainly been able to tap into some of the great talent that that produced High School Musical and Camp Rock. A gentleman named Steve Vincent, based in Burbank, who was the musical head for all of those movies, and he helped us create the music for the Lodge. So we're hopeful.
What's the process of adapting a show? Is it because the numbers were so stellar in Israel, or is it because the team said there's something about this that might work for kids elsewhere?
We knew that the show worked incredibly well in Israel, and we did some testing with some kids across EMEA and realized that the story was a really strong one and universal, and the characters popped and were relatable to kids across multiple markets. One of the things that we changed in the series was making it a musical. There were some musical elements to the series. One of the characters was a DJ in the original series. One of the characters wanted to be a singer, actor in the original series. But we completely dialed it up and made it a musical series. So we created 9 original songs. That was one of them that you heard, that are sung about 30 different times across the 10 episodes by different characters in different ways. And so that was one of the ways in which we evolved things. Another way was the original series, the first season, was 50 episodes. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of different stories, and the stories play out in a very different way over 50 episodes. We had 10 episodes, so we got to some story points pretty quickly. By the end of the first episode, our lead character was basically taking charge of things, whereas in the Israeli series, they had more time to develop that storyline.
Is it the first time you've been through this formatting process in this way? I know that there have been some adaptations of some successful telenovelas, Violetta, etc. But with a show like this, is it a first for you guys? Yeah,
this is the first time we've taken one series and completely made a different version from another. Violetta is a incredibly successful telenovela. We're continuing our success with telenovelas across EMEA with a show called Soy Luna, and those are original productions produced in conjunction with our colleagues in Latin America based out of Buenos Aires.
On the point, really, the telenovelas, I know they're tremendously successful, particularly in Southern Europe, but don't necessarily always resonate in the same way in the UK.
Yeah, that's true. I think one of the challenges that we have from a UK perspective is that the UK audiences, unlike the audiences in the rest of Europe, really don't take to dubbed content very well. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but we've met that challenge a couple of times. We had Violetta, we had a show called Billy and the Ghost, which we ran last summer, which was originally Binny and the Ghost, based out of, it was a German production. And so, and Billy and the Ghost is an interesting one. For the first time, we actually dubbed with UK voices. So we took, instead of taking American voices and putting them over the actors, we took British voices, and we felt that it definitely had a more positive impact. So we continue to explore those kinds of opportunities.
And with the Lodge, that's with Zodiac, yeah. What's the process of going out there and deciding which production company you will work with in this? Was there kind of a request for ideas? How did it? What were the mechanics?
So we had a bunch of episodes that we had subtitled with English subtitles, so folks could take a look at that. And we went out to about 3 or 4 different production companies, shared the episodes, shared English Bibles and character descriptions, and then the production companies came back and pitched us. And one of the things that really tipped it over for Foundation was their idea to incorporate a reality show into the new series. And in the original series, it was a talent show that was coming to town. They had the idea to make it a reality show and actually incorporate the reality show and the filming of the characters on the show as part of the actual show, which was really very smart and allowed us to create all sorts of story opportunities and also make it really relevant to today's kids.
And David, that looks like, from the excerpt that we saw, that looks like a very Disney show. But what internally, what does that mean? What do you have as defining a Disney show, or Louise?
Good question. Well, I think obviously David touched on the fact that this was an Israeli format, and I think what makes a Disney show is fantastic storytelling, basically, and a lot of that may be universal in its themes across the globe, but there is no doubt this is a very local show. Obviously, it's filmed in Northern Ireland. It looks like Northern Ireland, and it, rather than having Israeli beaches and swimming, because we don't get that here really, we've incorporated mountain biking, kayaking. It really does take advantage of the beautiful sort of landscape, but the talent as well. It's a very local cast, and so it definitely speaks to our audience directly. But once again, fantastic storytelling. We think it will translate to a number of markets.
And Louise, to really spell it out for people in the room, I guess most people know, but to really get, so maybe people can scribble it down. Tell us about the profile of the channels that you look after in terms of the demos and such like.
Sure. So obviously we've got the sort of full demographic spread, which is fantastic for us. Disney Channel, which obviously was the original channel, targets kids broadly and families with a sweet spot with girls 8 to 12. But we are very inclusive in terms of the content we put on there and the breadth of that content. We see it really as a very much kind of navigational channel for that audience, and the themes and storytelling in it kind of very relatable to kids of that age. Comedy is key. It is to all of our channels. We are there to entertain, and comedy is crucial. But drama gives an opportunity to touch on other themes as well, which is fantastic. Disney XD, a newer channel. Obviously, David looked after it in the US for a number of years, which is fantastic. We're very fortunate, clearly, to have some big brands in our mix in sort of action, adventure, animation with Marvel and Star Wars, but comedy and animated comedy as well as live action comedy increasingly important in that mix. So offering a really nice blend to an audience there, definitely sort of super serving boys, but once again with a real sort of inclusivity about it. So that kind of balance is there. And then of course on the preschool side, Disney Junior, which is going from strength to strength, currently #1 pay TV channel with this demographic, and really that's leveraging our huge history and sort of heritage really of storytelling with characters that kids and families love, and we'll come on to talk a bit more about that later on in terms of the kind of content that you can expect there, but clearly really beautiful quality animation and characters that kids really engage with.
And if we were to take 12 months between CMC now and a year ago, what's really popping on the channel? What's really working? Because of course, by seeing that, producers can get a sense of how they can pitch stuff to you that is in tune with your needs.
Sure.
Yeah, go.
Well, we'll touch on it a little bit more later, so I won't say too much, but The Lion Guard is our sort of recent huge success. So we kicked that off on Disney Junior in February with a 44-minute special, Return of the Roar, and I'm not going to steal too much thunder from later on, because we've got Ford Riley here, the creator, which is fantastic, so you'll hear him speak later on much more eloquently than I will. But a really beautiful way of taking what is a very well-loved property, The Lion King, and bringing that to a preschool audience. So that's really gorgeous. We followed it in April with the series, and that's just going from absolute strength to strength. We have kind of beat a lot of our ratings goals with that 44-minute special, and it's doing great guns around the world. So you'll hear more about that later.
Are we allowed to see a clip, or is?
We do have a clip of The Lion Guard right now.
There you go.
He's ready. It is time.
Time for what? Dad? Rafiki? What's going on?
Son, we need to talk.
Oh, no, Dad, we already had that talk. Can you feel the love tonight? I know all about that mushy stuff.
Well, it's not that, Kion.
No, most definitely not that. We have heard your roar. Yes, yes.
And guys, what is the mix typically of US versus international content on the channels?
Well, we're not sort of working to any specific ratios or quotas, really. Clearly, we have, Ofcom regulations in terms of local content, but for us, it's about the mix. Clearly, a lot of our US pipeline content works really well for us, but we are very conscious of complementing that with various types of content from around the globe, and particularly from our local markets, so whether that's acquisition, co-production, and clearly originations. So it's really about that mix for us.
Given you've got a tremendous pipeline of content coming from the US, and playing devil's advocate without wanting anyone to attack me on stage from the UK production community, what's the rationale for commissioning from the UK? Are there certain genres, are there certain types of programming that you can only get locally?
Well, we're primarily driven by great quality content that fits our brands and speaks to our audience. We also have, as you mentioned, a great pipeline of content from the U.S., but they don't produce everything, and they don't produce all kinds of content. They're great, for example, at sitcoms, 3-camera comedies, and so that's not something that we would look to try to replicate here, and instead we look to complement what we get from the global pipeline. And there's an incredible tradition, particularly in the UK, of drama and kids drama, as well as preschool, that we are very happy to tap into. And so working with Lime Productions on Evermore and Evermore Chronicles, working with Foundation on The Lodge, those are just 2 examples of being able to tap into that great heritage. And then, being able to get local kids onto the channel and allowing our local audience to see themselves reflected is also very important. And so we do that in a variety of ways. One big way that we've done that, while also supporting the company's very strong initiative to drive healthy living choices, is a show called First Class Chefs. First Class Chefs was a series that we did last year, which had kids competing on various challenges, all centered around cooking and healthy living. And we're happy to say that we're doing another series of that, which we're announcing officially today, which is First Class Chefs Family Style, which is bringing back a bunch of the kids that were competitors last time, along with family members competing in various food-related challenges. So that's a great way for us to be able to create a local connection to the audience by bringing local kids, UK kids, onto the channel.
With the new one that you've just announced, I think,
yes.
You've played with the format, it seems, slightly. What was the thinking?
So we wanted to create something a little bit different. We wanted to create something that really spoke to families cooking together. And that for us is one of the focuses of our healthy living initiative over the entire company. And so we vary the format. We also are varying the length, so we're making it a bit of a shorter format, so it will have its first home on nonlinear platforms and then rolling out across all the different platforms. So we've made some adjustments to take into account both the family aspect as well as how kids are consuming content today.
That sounds like something that is eminently formatable. Is that something that could be remade for other markets, for the US or other parts of the world?
Absolutely, and actually we've seen some great initial success with the original format. First Class Chefs is now actually airing in the US on the Disney Channel nonlinear platform. We've had a number of markets in EMEA do dubbed versions, and so we're always looking, both the EMEA markets looking at the UK and the UK looking at the EMEA markets, at different formats to see how we can use those across the region and across the world.
Whether it's Evermore or The Lodge, do you launch simultaneously across a region, EMEA, for example, or is it staggered? How do you actually get shows out there and launch them?
Well, so that's more on my EMEA role in terms of working with all the different programmers across the region. And essentially, everyone looks at the content as it's coming through the various pipelines, taking into account dubbing timelines, delivery timelines. Also, of course, different markets have different holiday periods, and all the individual channels make those choices using a variety of factors to schedule their individual channels. And of course, we try to align some of our programming to hit other business initiatives and other franchise initiatives, but essentially it's a local programming decision.
You mentioned, David, that First Class Chefs will play in the US on the on-demand part of the service. How ordinary or out of the ordinary is it for a show commissioned in the UK or Europe to then head back over the Atlantic?
We've had a couple of them go over so far. So the original Evermore miniseries, now First Class Chefs, and certainly on the animation side, a range of our animated series that we've done have traveled. PJ Masks is a great example, which is a show creatively led out of EMEA, out of our London office, produced primarily in France. And that's traveled to the U.S. and is doing gangbusters. So there's a whole range of Counterfeit Cat. It's a UK-produced show, also going over to the U.S. So there's a range of examples, plenty of them.
And for content companies, for producers in the room, what are the mechanics of the commissioning process? Are there certain commissioning rounds at given times of year? What's the first point of call?
So we don't have open calls or anything like that, like some of our competitors. We have an ongoing commissioning basis, and we have two main routes in. If you're a production company and you have finished or semi-finished or content in production that we would be looking to acquire, you would speak to a gentleman named Ian Lambert, who is in the front row over there. Raise your hand, Ian. Yeah. And if you are a creator, a writer, and you have a concept that you'd like to pitch to us in terms of original concepts for us to potentially option and develop and produce, then you would speak to a woman named Grania Rowe, who's also in the front row. Grania, raise your hand. There you are. So those are the two first points of call for us. And as we get content in, we share it across the various groups, and we evaluate it for how strong we think it is, the creative team, how unique it is, how it fits with the brand.
What the timelines involved? Let's assume you're pitched something, you're interested. What's the next stage? So it depends on, of course, what stage you're pitching it to us in. And we generally try to get back in a relatively short amount of time. Certain times take longer than others, and after a market when we've gotten tons of pitches, it might take a little bit longer. But everyone tries to get back in a relatively reasonable amount of time. And should producers have in mind that you operate channels throughout Europe and the EMEA region as well as internationally, or could something be UK specific? Do you want something that's going to resonate across all of your channels? We generally look to find content that certainly has a local appeal but can work on a regional and a global basis. We look for content that fits the Disney brands that we have, and our brands are global. So in an ideal world, content, certainly anything that we're going to make a big investment in, is going to be something that needs to travel. And are you happy to structure these as co-productions, or in some instances will you fully fund in order to scoop all the rights? We have a range of setups that we do, everything from buying something out 100% and then acquiring something for a license fee. It all depends on the project. And I guess a crucial question is always, at this particular moment in time for any of the channels, are there any specific programming needs? Is there a certain type of show that has recently gone away and a slot you may like to fill and so forth? I think, as David's touched on, I guess sort of live action sitcom is covered off. So it's really, I guess, outside of that. But, across the range of our channels, both animation and live action, less so in the preschool space, live action, I would say, but really about speaking to our audience. So I think it's understanding our audience, which I'm sure a lot of you do, and really about concepts that appeal to them and that have themes and things that obviously relate to them. So yeah, authentic to our audience, relatable and fun. They do want to be entertained first and foremost. And I think the other thing, and we'll touch on it later as well, is just to think about the multi-platform approach as well. So whether it's additional content that complements the main idea that can sit across non-linear platforms, websites, apps, YouTube, and making that sort of feel integral to what you're creating is also important, rather than sort of tacked on as an afterthought, because increasingly we do want assets across those platforms to make sure those touch points are 360 and our audience is connecting with them across the board. Are you commissioning specifically for online platforms? Well, First Class Chefs, the spin-off series that David announced, it very much was, with a digital platform in mind. We will take it onto linear as well, but we do want to get it out there as far and wide as we can with that healthy living
sort of backbone to it as well. It's important that reach, it's out there on as many platforms as we can get it.
And for digital content, what kind of formats are you thinking in terms of number of episodes and length? How short is short form?
Yeah, good question. It can be very short. You know, some of our supplementary content that from the Lodge, we're going to show a little bit, I think, in a minute. It can be very short. We know, if you're consuming content on these platforms, your Instagrams, your Facebook, YouTube, some of it can be really short, like, micro content, as we call it, sort of 10 seconds or so. And YouTube, sort of 90 seconds, 2 minutes, that kind of thing. So it really depends on the idea. It depends on which platform you want it for. So I think that's a conversation. But I think we've got a rate for the Lodge, for example. I think, can we show the clip for the Lodge soon? Yeah. We're going to show you a little clip here. We've got some amazing non-linear content for that, and what's really great about it is some of it's very much in character and carries the stories on after the episode is finished, so it's keeping that audience involved in those stories and characters beyond the original transmission of the episode. And some of it is very much behind the scenes and takes our audience into the world of creating the show. So there's two very different angles, which is really lovely. And we're just going to show you a clip, I think, from the Lodge, which is called, I can never say it properly, Joss's Goss. And in terms of the story, Sky is our central character. She's come from the big city to live in a rural location, and she is desperate to sort of keep in touch with one of her best friends back in the city, who's called Josh. And he and they do a lot of that by kind of Skype and FaceTime type calling, very relevant to our audience. So this is some content that we're going to seed out before the initial TX of our first episode, and very much from the world of our audience.
Sky, you alright?
My hair hurts. I think I slept on it funny.
Oh yeah, I hate when that happens. How's morning breath? Also, what do you want to do today? I'm thinking we head into the city, some shopping, take the selfie stick out for a spin.
Or we could just hang out here. That works.
They're very real, yeah.
Good stuff. It's great to actually see something to illustrate what you're talking about. Well, I'll have one final question. How much has the introduction of tax breaks in the UK impacted what you can and can't do here?
So, as I mentioned, we always look for great stories and great creators first and foremost, and that's really where we go to first. However, I will say the tax credit has been a great way for us to unlock putting together productions here in the UK. So it was fundamental to being able to greenlight our first season of Evermore Chronicles, as well as the long-form series that we've greenlit since. So we've been especially grateful and found it incredibly beneficial.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. It was great to hear from Disney. Thank you to David and to Louise.